Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Conversations on Agroecology. On this conversation, we will hear about the key factors for business models in agroecology living labs and research infrastructures. I'm 𝗬𝗂𝘀𝗶 and along with my colleague Ana Pires da Silva from INIAF, I'm pleased to moderate this conversation. I represent the Austrian Agency for Health and Food Safety, short for AGES, and my AGES colleague 𝗧𝗂𝘂𝘀𝗵 will be handling the technical aspects today. So she's going to be able to assist you with any technical issues during the event. AGROECOLOGY, the European Partnership on Accelerating Farming Systems Transition, Agroecology Living Labs and Research Infrastructures, is a collaborative research and innovation initiative involving the European Commission, 26 member states, associated countries, third countries with a total of 72 partners. These conversations on agroecology are among the initial steps to enhance agricultural knowledge and innovation systems, short AGIS, for the ecological transition. These conversations aim to foster connection between living labs and research infrastructure actors throughout Europe. Our monthly online discussions will continue throughout the 7-year partnership, promoting the engagement and networking of agroecology stakeholders across Europe. And in 2026, we will have conversations emphasizing the 13 principles of agroecology. And today's talk is related to the principle of economic diversification. We are going to have 2 presentations as always today. The first one will be given by Gerald Schwarz from the Johann Heinrich von Thünen-Institute and Säde Virkki from Lucca, who will talk about the sustainable business models of agroecology living labs and research infrastructures, introduction to the approach and emerging key issues. Our second presentation will be given by Iria Soto and José Manuel Avila Castoera from 𝗏𝗺𝗀𝗃. And it's going to be about 𝗏𝗺𝗃𝗃, reflections on sustainable business models for research infrastructures working on agroecology. And after these 2 talks, you will have the opportunity to join the questions and discussions. But before we begin, let's go quickly through the conversation play rules, like always. Please ensure a good technical quality. And to allow that, keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking and your camera closed when your connection is not so good. Feel free to join the conversations by speaking up in the questions and discussions part, or you can also use the chat. We respect everybody's opinion and we keep our questions short and simple. Comments and ideas are very important to us and also highly welcomed. And this conversation will be recorded. If anyone has objections to this, please let us know now. I think we are looking good and we can start. So without further ado, I would like to hand the floor to Gerald.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Julia. I will just share my screen. Okay.
Perfect.
I hope you
can see it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Can
Excellent.
See it, hear you.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks a lot for the introduction and yeah, for organizing the conversations and to give us the opportunity here to talk a bit about the work that we are doing on sustainable business models. And I think you already explained that in a way that in the first presentation now we will focus more on introducing the approach that we are taking in the analysis and the work together with the living labs and research infrastructures, touch a little bit on a few examples of issues that emerge from the interviews that we did already, but then really the focus here is more introducing the approach, and then we have the second presentation where we hear more from the perspective of a research infrastructure that actually participates in the interviews and in the analysis of the sustainable business models together. So in the first presentation, we prepared together with Säde and David, and we just wanted to start with the agroecology partnership as a little bit, of course, that's where the work is placed in, and maybe just to explain briefly on why we are focusing on agroecology living labs and research infrastructures. And this is because the partnership agroecology really has identified those two mechanisms, agroecology living labs and research infrastructures, as kind of key mechanisms, key instruments to advance agroecology transitions and really to look into how to best utilize agroecology living labs and research infrastructures to advance agroecology transitions in Europe. So it's about the real-life testing, the emphasis on co-creation and the multi-actor context, and the participation and the shifts in knowledge production that we see with the co-creation and the participation, and also the focus on the research infrastructures at various scales, really making scientific knowledge available. And it's the interplay together then of the agroecology living labs and the research infrastructures that we are looking at. So in the particular part of the work of the partnership that we are talking about today here with the work on the sustainable business models, this is linked to particular objectives of some of the activities in the partnership to improve the understanding of the long-term sustainability of agroecology living labs and research infrastructures. And here also, as I said before, looking at living labs research infrastructures that operate at different scales. And to do that, to look into the long-term sustainability of those living labs and research infrastructures, always with the perspective of their contributions to agroecology transitions. The second objective is really to improve the access to knowledge and the use of the services provided by the research infrastructures and fostering collaboration between the agroecology living labs and the research infrastructures. So this is a little bit the background and the overarching objectives, that part or those tasks of the partnership that we are talking about here. Then maybe just to start with a few conceptual issues when we talk about the long-term sustainability of agroecology living labs and research infrastructures and about the integration of the two. We are using here the sustainable business models approach, and we did several reviews of sustainable business models in the literature to start with, and the application of those sustainable business models basically cuts across different levels of analysis. So there's a framework level where it provides kind of descriptive guidance for different building blocks and implementation plans. You have an analytical level where it's really about analyzing the key success factors for the implementation plans, and you have a process level where it's really about understanding the processes of the actors together co-developing sustainable implementation plans. What becomes evident already from the wording of those 3 points is that when we talk about sustainable business models, we are really talking in a way about implementation plans, long-term implementation plans for agroecology living labs and research infrastructures. And of course, since we are not talking about living labs and research infrastructures in general, but we are talking about agroecology and agroecology transitions and transformations, it is this context that's really important to consider when we look into agroecology living labs and analyze them, and the same for the research infrastructure. So it's the focus on sustainability and really the values-based approaches and the values-based implementation plans. At the same time, in addition, it's also important to highlight that this is not about single businesses or plans for single businesses for like a single farm. We are talking about network level business models here in particular for agroecology living labs and for the integration also of agroecology living labs and research infrastructures. We then identified and looked at different kind of conceptual topics, key issues that fed into the preparation of the work. So the fact that we have really a diversity of research and innovation arrangements, the issue of data harmonization and comparative research, and how that potentially fits and can be addressed with integration of agroecology, living labs and research infrastructures, issues surrounding social capital, and in a way also institutional cultures when it comes to research and education, also differences in research cultures and research approaches, from disciplinary research approaches to transdisciplinary research approaches, really emphasizing the co-creation and participation in living labs in contrast to the research infrastructures, and how to address that. This similar aspect to the role and impact of digitalization, how that impacts on agroecology living labs, their potential to contribute to agroecology transitions, and how digitalization can also play a role in bringing together agroecology living labs and research infrastructures. And of course, since we are talking about the long-term sustainability, the focus is on long-term processes, really, of integrating living labs and research infrastructure. So in a way, looking through the work into options, opportunities on institutionalizing the integration of agroecology, living labs and research infrastructures, different models, but of course there is a broad spectrum and a diversity of combinations and integrations that we are likely to see. So as I said, when we talk about sustainable business models for agroecology, living labs and research infrastructures, of course, it's important then to capture different values. So it's not about economic values only, even though it's the term business models. It's about the human and social values that are of importance here, that need to be considered within the sustainable business model frameworks, and about the value co-creation that are captured with those frameworks. And it's about the kind of shared learning, really, about different values, activities that are part of the sustainable business models, and then to basically advance our understanding also about barriers and enablers for the integration of agroecology, living labs and research infrastructures in terms of advancing the transition to agroecology. With the work that we are doing here, we build, of course, on previous work. Similar work with business model canvases and living labs was done in the Liaison project, and also as part of the soil mission. An adapted version of that was used for soil health living labs that 𝗃𝗏 was leading. And here in our work, we basically have introduced further adaptation to really increase the emphasis on different values and governance, and also broader risk coverage, and basically to reflect the context of agroecology transition. We used as a starting point in the Flourishing Business Canvas. This is the canvas that you see on this slide here, and maybe just to briefly explain a bit on the canvas. It is a kind of broader sustainable business model canvas that really includes environment, society, economy, and we used it as a starting point for the kind of key questions that we want to explore and to answer with the implementation plan. So it's about the what in relation to the outcomes, the objectives, the ambitions of the agroecology living labs research infrastructures. It's about the who, the people who are involved, engaged. It's about the why, so the values that are co-created and brought together by the different actors, and it's about the how, the different processes in designing and implementing activities in the governance and the resources of the agroecology living labs and research infrastructures. So this is a little bit our starting framework, and then through the reviews of how to best adapt the framework to an agroecology context, we then adapted the different building blocks. And this is the infamous moment where the presenter says, don't worry, don't read everything on this slide. It's just to briefly show, and we will provide the presentation afterwards, that we adjusted the different building blocks, the different structures of the canvas according to those kind of key questions, key dimensions that I just explained: what, who, why, and the how, and provided short explanations of each of the building blocks, just to frame the scope of the canvas. So basically, for the analysis of the sustainable business models, then we developed a kind of framework for the analysis. So as I said, as a kind of first step, we reviewed the relationships and the linkages of the building blocks of the initial flourishing business canvases in relation to the principles of agroecology, did adaptations in the structure and composition of the building blocks, and then are now in the process of doing a kind of two-stage analysis of the sustainable business models, doing first a kind of SWOT analysis of existing business models. And then after that, we will be doing a kind of subsequent analysis, really looking into the barriers and enablers and the kind of key factors for the sustainable business models on how to integrate agroecology, living labs, and research infrastructures. With that, there are, of course, certain objectives that we particularly pursue with that analysis. So overall, it's really about to deepen our understanding also of the long-term sustainability of agroecology, living labs, and research infrastructures, and to explore on how the integration then of those two can basically, on the one hand, enhance the access to tacit and scientific knowledge and the use of the two in bringing it together through the integration, and really to analyze how enhanced collaboration and potentially integration can really address barriers of agroecology transitions. Then in particular, with the kind of first step that I briefly mentioned in terms of the SWOT analysis, here really the objectives are then to improve the understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of the current business models, to look into what are the barriers and enablers that we can currently identify, that then basically will inform further our joint analysis, and also together with the living labs and research infrastructures that are involved in the analysis to form a group where we jointly analyze the implementation plans of sustainable business models and further develop those with the aim to look towards options for integration of agroecology, living labs, and research infrastructures. The approach is that we, in the SWOT, we're doing interviews, and we're doing
Gerald,
interview. Yeah.
Short notice, 2 minutes left.
Okay, good. With the group of living labs and research infrastructures, focusing here initially on members of the European network of agroecology, living labs, and research infrastructures, and then to go through a discussion of a set of questions on strengths and weaknesses of the different building blocks, opportunities and threats, and also reflections on further involvement. Then just to close and round up the presentation with a couple of slides on some of the issues that are emerging from the first set of interviews that we have done. First, a few issues on agroecology living labs. Just to mention some examples here. So when we look at the agroecological context that those living labs operate in, there are certain strengths, certain particular strengths, like the active engagement of farmers, existing agroecological initiatives that link with the living labs. There is high motivation of local producers, but then there are also challenges and weaknesses like fragmented agroecology initiatives, limited consolidation of alternative food networks. There's a range of different agroecological perspectives that we see across the living labs. There's a range of structural aspects that are emerging that are important to further pursue and analyze in respect to funding, high external funding dependency, a certain vulnerability because of dependence on project funding cycles, and also sometimes really kind of single themes funding sources. There is a kind of limited personnel capacity. When we look at transdisciplinarity, there's a need for ongoing training, really to ensure effective participation and co-creation. And there's also difficulties to attract, that were mentioned, young professionals or new farmers, and issues emerging in relation to data management, current data management practice, IPR, and data management policies. Similar, a few quick examples for the research infrastructures on the same 4 areas. So there's a limited direct connection to principles with the research infrastructures. This is because they are not specifically have been developed for the purpose of agroecology. I think this is an important point to keep in mind. There's stakeholder commitment and technical expertise, but limited engagement with farmers and cooperatives when it comes to transdisciplinarities. And there are some examples here also for structural aspects and data management. A similar aspect with respect to funding, with uncertainty of funding, like we also had for the agroecology living labs. Final point really is when we start looking at connecting research infrastructures and agroecology living labs based on the initial interviews, we do see differences across the scales of the research infrastructures. So regional and local research infrastructures do have often direct links to agroecology living labs. It's different at the national research infrastructures and European research infrastructures, but also there it's about exploring more the emerging possible links to agroecology living labs, and also here at those higher levels potentially to networks of living labs. We will be organizing a workshop in spring with the living labs and research infrastructures involved in the interviews, and then we will also launch further calls of interest, and we will expand the analysis in the group. Basically also to involve other living labs and research infrastructures who are interested in this. And I think with this, I stop now, and I think we will now hear much more details on the actual strengths and weaknesses with the example of 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, the research infrastructure. Thanks, and sorry for probably being a bit longer than I should have. Thanks.
Thank you, Gerald. Great. So yeah, let's continue with the presentation by Iria and José Manuel about the reflections of sustainable business models for research infrastructures working on agroecology. The stage is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Julia, for giving us the floor and for the opportunity to present in this forum. I'm Iria Soto, and together with José Manuel Ávila, we will briefly introduce how the sustainable business model that was presented by Gerald has been implemented and operationalized in our research infrastructure in 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. So next, yeah. So we wanted to start briefly looking first at how taking part of this interview has helped us as a research infrastructure. So for us, the participation in this exercise has been an opportunity, a great opportunity to reflect together and in collaboration with our colleagues and managers to reflect about our internal organization, our strategic documents, and also about the role that we are playing within the agroecology community and the role that we are playing contributing towards agroecological transition. So it has been an opportunity for self-assessment and to critically assess our values and identify how we are aligned with the agroecology principles and the sustainable models. It has also been an opportunity to better identify our gaps in terms of the different building blocks, in terms, for instance, of the strategic vision, and it has helped us to better identify our strength and also our limitation. So we get insights on which aspect where we are good and strong, and in which aspects we could contribute towards the agroecological transition. Also, This exercise came in a quite convenient time because now we are moving towards our next strategic working plan that will start in 2027, and it was a good forum for discussion and reflecting on how we can improve. So before we have structured the presentation by selecting some building blocks and then looking at 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses associated of those elements, those building blocks. But before assessing these different building blocks, we would like you to give a bit of the context, or a short description of our activities and our core business. So we are, like 𝗵𝗂𝘂𝘂𝗃, an European research infrastructure consortium. We are not regional nor national. We operate at EU level, and we provide research facilities and services mainly to the scientific community working in the fields of biodiversity and ecosystem research, which of course this includes also agroecosystems. And we provide these services with the final goal of addressing key planetary challenges. We were established by the European Commission in 2017, and we operated as a distributed infrastructure. So we have different common facilities in the Netherlands, Italy, and Spain. And then we have 8 national nodes in 8 member state countries that you can see in the screen. Is Netherlands, Belgium, Slovenia, Bulgaria, Greece, Italy, Spain, and Portugal. So next slide, please. So now focusing in our core business, we design, we manage and improve virtual workbenches, so digital platforms that act as workspaces for us to allow users to access, analyze, and model data. We provide services and resources connected with data, such as computational tools, cloud storage capacity, analytical services, and we also provide access to large-scale data sets on ecosystem and agroecosystem-related fields. Important is that we also operate across the entire knowledge change, so from the data collection to the data application, the full data cycle. And the objective of our core business is to deliver scientific products that are co-designed with the end users. So next slide, please. So now diving into the building blocks, we have here the agroecological context building block. And we had to identify in the interview which specific agroecological principles was our eye working towards. So we identify ourselves aligned with the majority of the 13 high-level panel expert principles, but our activities connect more with some of them, such as biodiversity, soil health, fairness, and co-creation of knowledge. So as a strength of this of our institution in the agroecological context, we think that focusing on biodiversity domain is a relevant strength because it's a complex element and not easy to be assessed or targeted by all type of RIs or living lab. So it gives us an added value. We also have a quite established protocol to co-create knowledge. We will explain how it works further later on, but we have this figure of the strategic working groups that serve to identify needs of specific communities, and we are very much committed with fairness. So the fairness principle is key for us, related with data. We are committed to comply with fair data and open data principles. Regarding our weakness, we are very much specialized in one type of stakeholder, the scientific community, and probably this is a challenge due to the complexity of our activities. Also, agroecology is not the central core of our work. Our organization was not funded to address agroecology specific research need. However, it's becoming gradually an important part of our activities. And also, probably aligned with previous weakness, we mainly deal and work with environmental data, ontologies, vocabularies, but now we are moving more towards this transdisciplinarity of data, including also the socioeconomic domains. We were also asking the questionnaire about the key elements of the vision and the mission of our RI. So you can see in the left side the vision and the mission. So our vision, a key element of our vision, is to provide access to the world biodiversity content and services in one click. And additionally, our mission highlights different core elements. So the provision of access, specifying that cutting-edge technology should be applied, the importance of ensuring that the analysis and the products that we provide are reproducible, so complying with FAIR principles, and also that the services should be co-designed and co-developed with the user community, and that our final goal is to create science that support evidence-based policy making. So as a strength of our institution in this building block, we believe that there's a strong alignment with the EU priorities, and we are applying also a distributed model, so enhancing this multinational and member states collaboration. We have a strong commitment with fair data and open science culture, and we have a strong innovation capacity by providing cutting-edge scientific tools and by working in the intersection of ecology, ICT tools, and data science. Regarding the weakness, we understand that our vision is a bit complex and ambitious and not easy to operationalize, and that there's a risk of working on silos and also for setting clear priorities. We also see that we have limited visibility beyond the scientific community. So now regarding the monitoring building block, we were asked for the different monitoring and evaluation mechanisms that we have, and we have mainly two. The external one is the 𝗵𝗃, the European Strategic Forum on Research Infrastructure, and we are part of this 𝗵𝗃 landmark. So we are therefore recognized as an European large-scale research infrastructure that is operational and that we are of strategic importance for Europe. And that means that by being part of this network, we are subject to periodical external monitoring and reporting under this 𝗵𝗃 process. Internally, we also have different commitments for oversight, the financial and the in-kind of the member states' contribution. We also had an ad hoc evaluation committees, but we also have an important scientific and technical advisory board that provides independent advice on our scientific, technological, and strategic development of the 𝗵𝗿𝘀 services and tools. We believe that as a strength that we have a quite robust oversight mechanism, both external and internal, and specifically the external, as in it's integrated within an EU evaluation standard structure reporting system. And we are following a culture of transparency and continuous improvement by integrating also an advisory board in our system. Regarding the weakness, we think that we lack an external benchmarking. Probably in the next steps of these activities of the Sustainable Business Model assessment exercise, we will participate in workshops and discussions with research infrastructure, and maybe it will be a good opportunity to learn from others and benchmark. We also see as a weakness this difficulty to provide metrics on assessment of specific activities, and also the complexity to assess with simple indicators the relevance of some of our developments. So now looking at the user and stakeholders engagement building block, I will not go very much into the details, but for us, our primary users are the scientific communities. They are both the scientifics from the 𝗏𝗏𝘂𝘃𝗃 member states, but also from the European and the global research community. We also have early career scientifics, and we also focus somehow on stakeholders from the general public. As a strength, we identify that we have the fact that we have already a strategy document that it's called a strategy for stakeholders and users engagement. And so it's a strategic document set in place that provide us with a clear mapping of our stakeholders, and also it shows us the importance of them in our engagement process, and also a prioritization. Also in this document, and I think that it's important, there are like KPIs and in place for monitoring these engagements. So it also states how relevant for us is the engagement. And also we have in 𝗏𝗏𝘂𝘃𝗃 a mechanism that is the thematic service working group. It's a strategy that it's used to apply and to approach different communities of interest. These working groups bring together researchers from a specific domain with the objective of turning the science-specific needs into applicable 𝗏𝗏𝘂𝘃𝗃 services. And as weakness, we believe that we have a high multidimensionality of the research topics with which we deal. So there are different small communities to target. Also, we need to improve and to reinforce the way we deal with the national nodes and the distributed centers. And there are stakeholders groups that we consider essentials and that we are not managing to engage well in our approach. So I will give now the floor to my colleague José Manuel, and he will continue presenting additional aspect of this sustainable business model.
Thanks, Ilia. Thanks. I will be quick because there are it's an extensive exercise, and it helped us a lot. And just to bring you the type of reasoning we had doing this exercise in the partnership. So another key point or element, it's the added value, and together with the block of the sharing values. And in 𝗏𝗏𝘂𝘃𝗃, we have a guiding document that it's the 𝗏𝗏𝘂𝘃 culture principles, and it consists of the building blocks of for what our CEO called collective DNA, and the pillars are for organizational personality and designed to support our vision and mission, the one Ilia showed before. No? So this guiding document identify our key principles that you can see here in the picture, and all the members need to follow that. No? And it includes some key elements that are linked to the added value for the communities, and you can see there in green, but also the stakeholder relationships, and with a strong block on fairness, as it was also mentioned before. No? So at some strength that we identify here, it's that we have these principles, we have this, it's very focused on the adding value and the co-creation, and with a strong focus on fairness, no, to promote recognition of contribution, inclusiveness, transparency, evidence-based decision making, and this is part of our core elements. No? On the other hand, we detect some weakness that some of them, as we are a distributed research infrastructure, it's very difficult to ensure, and it can be differences in consistency across the different teams and nodes within 𝗏𝗏𝘂𝘃𝗃, and also sometimes it's difficult to go beyond the academia, the research community, as we mentioned before, but we are working on that. Another. I couldn't.
A 2-minute warning.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Julia. Another point is how we organize our services. And this is one of our key elements. We need to provide research infrastructure that are the state of the art, even beyond the state of the art. And for that reason, we are also developing these research projects. And so we try to organize our services to facilitate the researchers and non-researchers to move from their experimental design and the measurements, let's say, in the field, to the report, manuscript, policy briefs that need to be delivered, no, through different ways. And we have our My Life Watch, it's in the space in which you can access all the services we already provide, no. So and one of the strengths are focused on this development of state-of-the-art e-services, but sometimes, or most of the times, and they are not totally aligned with the community needs. And we can explain that because they are sometimes developed use cases approach, no, so by a specific projects, so they have some bias, and we need extra resources to address other needs that the community can have. And also we are very focused, and it's defined by researchers, so we need to improve all the documentation process and disability for non-experts or the one that has not designed this. But we also have a limitation on resources, but because we sometimes work at project level, and it's difficult to manage. Regarding the governance, this is also something that it's published in our website. It's quite well described and designed, with a general assembly taking the decision, and board of directors with more of the operational side, and then the different units with the different roles and the connection with the countries. But this is very clear, but it's very complex. So it makes one of the good point, the strengths, but also the complexity and some slow decision-making processes sometimes, and makes this aspect difficult. I'm moving and just jumping this last one, and just finish with some closing remarks. For us, this Flourish Business Canvas, this canvas that has been developed in the partnership, it's helping us to thinking beyond funding and services, and allow us to include these another aspects that are usually missing in the business models. It is ecological, social, governance, and long-term sustainability dimension. So for us, it's really important, no? Because it fits very well with our mission or vision, working on biodiversity and ecosystem research, and specifically on agroecology, no? So it's helping us to making the value creation more explicit and aligned with these criteria, and they are helping us to adapt and improve our next strategic frameworks that we are developing, as Ilya mentioned. And also it's helping us to this diagnosis and this self-evaluation, but also it will be very beneficial for us, this meeting, these workshops, and these connections with other research infrastructures that we are very well connected through ESFRI and ENVRI and other in other cross-arise communities. But here it will help us to bring this innovative vision on the development of the business models. I will stop here, and happy to answer any question you have.
Thank you. Great. So I think we're ready to start the discussion. Anna and I will be your moderators, and please feel free to either raise your hands and speak up directly, or you can also type your questions, comments, ideas in the chat. So Anna.
Okay, we have.
Do we already have some? Yeah, great.
Yeah, we have a remark, and we have 2 questions. The first remark I can share with you. I can resonate to dependency on project funding. The heart of our living lab in digital agroecology are students, such as programmers, remote sensing specialists, who are expensive specialists for agriculture if recruited into living labs as professionals. So this is a remark. And then we have a question for Gerald. I would like to know about the current and foreseen synergies and collaboration with the soil mission, Soil Health Living Labs. Gerald, can you?
Yep, sure. Yeah, thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah,
we
okay,
can.
super. Yeah, thanks for the question. Well, we had a first exchange with the soil mission with 𝗃𝗏 at one of our executive meetings of the partnership about possible collaborations in terms of the work on living labs and also in terms of the work on the implementation plans or the sustainable business models. So I think this is something that we still need to discuss and explore further. But it would certainly be, and I think we probably all agree, that it would be useful to do that. And possible synergies or possible ways forward. I don't know whether that needs to be discussed, but I could imagine that at some point there could maybe be merit also to organize a joint workshop on that and to have an exchange on the work that we are doing with different, inviting Living Labs research infrastructure to that workshop and have a cross-cutting discussion. But I think there are discussions ongoing on that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Gerald. Okay, I can see one hand raised. Javier?
Yes, thank you very much. I just wanted to reply that was my question. I'm working now on 2 soil mission projects. So and also the soil mission has really embraced and put lots of effort into the living lab. And then for me, it's also a question of terms and definitions or even culture, because the soil mission works with these soil health solutions. Then there's agroecology. Also in one of the projects we work with nature-based solutions. There's a very good standard for UCN. So it would be good to somehow like also map these overlaps and synergies, but I mean in a practical way, not only for theory. I mean the soil health living labs and the solutions probably they will fit in the agroecology principles. So would you see some kind of workshop in this principle definition or harmonization of standards, even data? Is that something that could be interesting for the partnership? Thank you.
Gerald, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Harvey. That's a very good question. I think this is an important point. I think, and there, of course, also within the partnership, we are still in the process also of discussing and defining, for example, the scope of agroecology living labs on what exactly is an agroecology living lab, when is a living lab an agroecology living lab, what are the kind of key characteristics, key criteria that need to be in place for it to be called an agroecology living lab and not some other form of living lab. And I think there is, of course, a lot of different thematic labels that are put on living labs. As you said, there is soil health living labs, there is water living labs, there is food system living labs, there's agroecology living labs. And I think to me, and this is just my personal opinion, there would be certainly merit in clarifying all those different thematic labels further and what that means for the different types of living labs. What are the shared characteristics, the shared principles, and what are maybe different characteristics and different principles? So, for example, is it the case that soil health living labs maybe focus more on technological innovations and agroecology living labs maybe more on social innovations? And I put a question mark behind that. But it's these kind of questions that maybe merit some further discussion and also across the different major initiatives like the Soil Mission, the AGROECOLOGY Partnership, the Food System Partnership, the Water Partnership, etc. But I think it would be, from my point of view, an interesting and useful discussion to have.
Okay, thank you,
Teresa,
Gerald.
right? Is also raising your hand.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to jump in here because I'm national contact point for the Mission Soil in Austria. And since we started the discussion now about the Mission Soil Living Labs, I wanted to emphasize how important it is that living labs, or the work of the living labs in the Mission Soil, is like really, or supposed to be really hands-on. So something is happening there, something should change there. People are working together. People from the practical side, the farmers, or also municipalities, whoever, and science. But my question is now that what you showed us here about the business models is all very theoretical. Can you, or would you be the right people to be addressed for also Mission Soil Living Labs that actually are also struggling to define business models for their specific cases? Would you be there to support them? So is there a chance to have this cooperation in that way, that living labs or people that are in the process of preparing proposals for living labs, that they get support from you to actually come up with good business models?
Shall I reply to that?
I guess Gerald.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
The right person.
Thanks, Teresa, for the question. Yes, I think the framework as presented, and so of course it's quite a theoretical and conceptual framework. But the work that we are doing with the living labs and research infrastructures, this then is practical, because it's about the living labs and research infrastructures doing the exercise and looking with an internal view into the implementation plan. I think in principle, this is a bit linked to the previous questions. It would be very interesting to collaborate on those topics with the Soil Mission. I'm a bit hesitant to commit myself here, Teresa, because I also think that in the Soil Mission, there are colleagues who provide methodological guidance on the soil health, on the business models for the soil health living labs, I think. So it might be worthwhile exploring that as well. But there is certainly merit in having an exchange and also further discussions. I think to that, I suppose we would be very open. That of course would be valuable. And if there are practical questions emerging from the ground, then even more so that we address those and discuss those, how we can collaborate on that, maybe across the initiatives and find solutions.
Anna, if I may proceed. Are you muted at the moment?
Okay, so
Yeah.
we have, I don't see any hand raised, so we have another question for Gerard. But we have some comments from other participants, but we'd like to know about your opinion, Gerard. The question is, I have some issues in placing living labs and research infrastructures in the same box. So the research infrastructures provide technical services and can charge for them. Living lab is a working methodology. It produces knowledge for the common good, and I can't really see how to sell those. Gerard, I think maybe might be some confusion about what living lab actually are, but can you please comment on this?
Yeah, or Säde also commented on this, I saw.
You want me to respond? Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe Säde also wants to add something.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, thanks. There are, of course, quite different research infrastructures and living labs. I think the way I would understand, in particular in the part of the partnership that I'm personally involved in our work, is that we would not see living labs only as a working methodology, but maybe rather in particular when we talk about agroecology living labs, also something that is more like an actor network, bringing together the different actors on the ground, including researchers, and collaborating and through co-creation, implementing practical solutions. And it's that actor network that also, as an agroecology living lab, potentially could evolve into some kind of institutionalization, into a kind of territorial governance initiative, potentially. I think maybe with a question mark attached to it, and for further analysis and discussion. But I think this would be more our understanding, or at least the way I understand this, the way how we would see agroecology living labs. It's not only a working methodology. Of course, there are principles of the living labs that are in any type of living lab, also in the agroecology living lab, but it's not only a working methodology, at least from our interpretation. And the term with the sustainable business models, it's how we use it for the agroecology living labs. It's not so much from an economic perspective of earning profits or making money. It's about understanding how the implementation can be sustainably done in the long term. And of course, also an agroecology living lab will occur some cost and it will generate some benefits, but its sustainable long-term implementation will largely also depend on the social and human values that it co-creates together. So there is not only the economic values to be considered. I hope that answers the question to some extent.
Okay, thank you. We have some comments, but then we have here another question regarding this first question. How can the outcome of a living lab working method be sold as an innovation project result can be scaled up? For example, a new plant protection method developed through collaboration. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I was the person who was writing down that comment, so I just wanted to say about few words about the scaling, and then when you're having kind of living lab activities, so there's kind of methodology what you wanted to develop, and probably you're having some kind of project fund behind of the working activities inside of the living lab. So probably of the outcome of the project could be some kind of product or the method that you can be scaled, and then of taking care of the consider of the funding rules, and also might this method could be kind of EPR considers, so then that can be scaled. So this was a little messy of an answer for that, but it can be seen in that way, and also consider the open access goals. So if the fund has been provided through the consider of the open access, but the EPRs are a little bit different for that consider.
So actually, we are already at the end of the conversation. I think it went by really quickly today. And I want to thank everybody for the active participation, and also still want to invite you maybe to leave your contact in case you still want to discuss or exchange on this further on after the conversation. Yeah, I want to first of all really thank the speakers for their excellent contributions, the whole Task 7.1 group for the planning of the event, and the AGES team for organizing it, and all the participants for being here and participating so actively. And the next conversation will be held in a month on the 25th of March, and we will cover the principle of land and natural resource governance. Our speakers will be 𝗵𝗂𝘀𝘀𝗀𝗃 from the International Land Coalition and 𝗵𝗂𝘀𝗀𝗃𝗃 from the International University of Andalusia. I think this is also going to be a really interesting one, also on the topics of connecting the topic of land and natural resource governance also with feminism. If you have any ideas for topics for the conversations, please don't hesitate to contact us and let us know. Also, if you have colleagues who would like to join, just tell them about us and we can add them to the email list. And yeah, with this, I want to end this conversation. I want to thank you and see you in one month's time. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.